G'day folks, it's Cortezerino. Today we are doing the unthinkable. We're starting a new project. Now this one is not going to be a complete surprise, mainly because of the title of the video. It always gives it away, doesn't it? You always know what I'm about to say. Today we're making the Battleships game. Now this is going to be tricky because it's a redstone game and I haven't figured it all out yet, but I've decided to come on to survival and start building, and I'm going to be doing that for a very good reason. It's much easier to build these games in survival once you've figured the entire thing out on creative, but I can't do that here. Namely because it's going to be half a game and half a decorative build. I need to build 2 great big ships out in the ocean. And I want to try and hide my redstone, because the last thing I want is to have these cool looking ships and then just redstone lying around everywhere. So let's just jump into my creative world and I'll show you what I've been up to. So last time we were here, I just had a single little cell and it was a bit of a concept design. I'd push a button and a minecart cannon would extend from the porthole here. And then I'd have to press another button to get the cannon to, or the minecart to fly out. And that's all I had, but I've done quite a bit more and I've actually compacted the design quite a bit. So I've got all these tiny little cells and it's actually pretty cool. There is a lot going on here. I've got the minecart launcher is also a randomizer, which I thought was pretty cool. So in here we have 5 minecarts and then just a bunch of little whatevers. And that's a dispenser, so if I push the button and we get a minecart, the minecart will come out here and we'll get a cannon extend. But if we don't get a minecart, if we get one of these saplings, it'll just go into that hopper and into this dropper here. And the next time we push the button, it'll get resupplied to this dispenser up the top. That's why I've got 2 of them, so we always make sure we've got one of them in there. So yeah, that's a really tiny little randomizer. So you're not going to get a cannon out of every portal every time. And the other thing I came up with was this trapdoor right here. That's doing all the heavy lifting. So if I push a button and we get a minecart. Nope. Did we? No, we didn't. Let's try again. Let's keep going. There we go. Got a minecart. See, the minecart gets pushed out and rests on top of this little trapdoor down the bottom here. And previously I was just opening that trapdoor to release this minecart. But now, the next time we get a pulse go through, this little trapdoor down the bottom will be the thing that pushes that minecart out. So, boom. And that even works when we've got another minecart coming through there. And you saw that minecart trip the tripwire hooks. That tells us we've been shot. But yeah, haven't rigged up any of the redstone for that yet. So this is the collection system I've come up with for everything. Nice and simple, just a bunch of water pushing everything down to here. So if we were to shoot that minecart, the minecart in its item form is just going to drop down here, go into the water stream, and then up the water elevator to get into this minecart up here and refill the droppers. So everything gets recycled. But this is pretty cool. We might stop and wait for this, but we don't actually need to break this minecart just yet. We can send him straight up the water elevator. So it's reaching that bit of powered rail, and that gives it enough momentum to get up here. And up here is where we break it on that cactus, and then it goes into a hopper and into here. And this minecart with the chest in it will launch every time we get all our cannons fire. That'll go along here and do a little refill. So that's pretty cool. And the other thing I came up with was a way to do a counting system. So I want it to be once you get shot 3 times with someone's cannon, you are out. And I wanted a display for that. And this was a pretty cool little way of doing it. So I've got a chest here with nothing in it, but what we've got is a dropper and it's got wooden shovels in it. And so when that fires, it'll drop items in the chest. That redstone torch is keeping the hopper underneath locked. And for every 2 wooden shovels, we're going to get 1 more lamp come on. So we've got an observer block here powering that dropper. So every time you get a pulse through, because observer blocks flick twice, we are going to get our 2 shovels. So there's 1 light. We do it again, we get a 2nd light. And that just made the display so much easier to wire up rather than have tons of redstone going all over the place. That's a nice, simple way of doing it. And when we're done, when the game's over, we just unlock this torch and everything goes back into our dropper there. But yeah, this is pretty much where I decided to stop building in creative, because I realized what I was doing. I was going to make 2 really cool ships here, and then I realized down here in the water, like, that doesn't look very realistic. If you're looking at the build from a distance, you're like, what's all that stuff down there? And then having a huge display up here as well. Like, I was thinking of maybe having a big gangplank going over between the 2 ships and putting the display in that. I may still do that, I'm not sure. But I'm thinking maybe I'm going to try and bury these displays into the ships themselves. So I want it to be, when you look at this build from a distance, you can't tell it's a game until you get right up there and you find the button to press to start it. So basically, I'm going to sort of build what I've got right here, and then start designing 2 ships. And then once we've got the ships built, then we're going to start figuring out where all the rest of the redstone is going to go. But first we need to find a spot to actually build this thing, and I might pick up my shulker boxes and take them with me. Just in case we don't have to come back to base once I find my spot. We might have enough goodies in here. I'm not even going to need you. Doesn't matter. So, even though we are really, what's in there? Really close to the ocean here, I don't necessarily want to build our boats out here, because this is Persia. Just out there is Atlantis. And I think I'm going to be doing medieval style ships, and none of them really fit in this area. So there's not much room to put a big ship game here. And I'd probably ruin the Atlantis build we got going on. So let's go for a bit more of a wander. Again, not a lot of room here before we run into the world tree. So I'm thinking I may want to build it just on the other side of this bridge over here. And I remember there is a terraformed island that might give us a good little base of operations. See, somewhere out here there is something. Yeah, there's a mob farm down there, so I don't want to get too close to that. Where was that island? See, out here is a perfect spot for it. Somewhere out here. There's the island. Okay, so I may build this game just off the coast. Yeah, right here, I think. It's a bit of a bay. It is deep enough. I think although this island isn't terribly terraformed yet, you can see big holes in it. Maybe I don't want to get too close to this. Okay. I'm sure we could do it right next to Dub's little farm here. It won't muck anything up. I think right here. Let's just do it right here, guys. And then we'll be able to see them from the world tree. Yep, that is the plan. We're going to build it here. And I just realized that in the last episode, when I first introduced my idea for this game, I explained how the game was going to work, but I haven't done it yet this episode. So if you haven't seen the last one, you won't know what I'm talking about. So the idea is this is a PvP game. So you've got another guy up on the other end and you're shooting at him, trying to distract him from shooting your cannons. So if you don't shoot the cannon in time, your boat gets hit. So you need to hit all their cannons and then fire at them. And because it's random, it's kind of pretty cool. So this time I'd go, yes, I've only got 3 cannons that I need to shoot, but maybe he's got all 7. So as soon as you get them, you start peppering away at your opponent. And hopefully if you can knock him back, because if you get knocked back, you can't see the cannons, you can get a shot in yourself. Or on the other hand, maybe all 7 appear here and you go, oh no, and you're kind of dodging him, trying to hit yours at the same time. So yes, that is the idea. And I'm beginning to think that this episode may be a 2-parter, because I've been at this for 24 hours and got very little done. Every time I go underwater there, the drowned just come from everywhere to attack me. But anyway, I've started doing the boat, putting the redstone in. You'll notice these rails are a little bit different to in the creative world because I'm building this facing in another direction, so the rails are trying to join with the ones up the top. It'll still work this way with them being on an angle, so at least I think it will. There shouldn't be any problems. The minecart will still launch as usual. And down there is how I'm trying to hide a lot of the redstone. So I've got 2 layers of water with signs underneath. The idea being that any items that fall down there, did that throw? Did I land that in a hopper? No, I'm just lagging. We'll try that again. Throw! The items will sink through those 2 bits of water before they ever try and float to the surface. So that is hidden kind of nicely. Boom! Here we are. So that's just coming down here and into our glass item elevator. I hope I can get out of here now. Let me out. Yes, I can get out. So just the way I'm building the ship, I'm not sure if I'll be able to hide all of that glass item elevator there, but I guess it'd be kind of cool to be able to see it a little bit and see the items shooting up. So anyway, that is what I've done so far. I've still got another boat to do, and I've still got to finish this and then decorate the boats. You see what I mean? Go away! Yeah, I think this will be a 2-parter, but I'll try and get the game working in this episode, and we can do all the rest of the ships and the sails and all that later on. And BC's come over for a little visit, thinking, what on earth is Cortezerino doing here? But we are making some progress. So, he's off, he's gone. See you, mate. So, I've started putting another ship in over here, and so this ship is basically a block-for-block copy of my elven ship that I did in the time-lapse, just so I didn't have to reinvent the wheel while I'm trying to do some redstone. So I think when I designed this ship, I based it on, I think it was an Indian ship, and then I changed a few things to make it look elvish. So what I'll try and do is just change it back and make it look more Indian again. And this one will be a completely different design, but I think the hull will be mostly similar. But now that I've got the shape of the ship in, I can start playing with the display. And I think I'm going to put it right here. So I had to change the redstone up a tiny bit, use some repeaters just so we could hide the redstone away down there. So the idea is, every time a light lights up on this side, it means that my ship has been hit. So I want to be able to look over and quickly check the score, how many hits that I've had on this side, but also be able to see how many hits they've had on their side. But what I've got to do right now is just figure out the rest of the redstone. So I've got some redstone lamps down there, so when a minecart falls all the way down the bottom, which means you've been shot, it's going to trigger some tripwires, light up. What's he talking about? It makes sound now. Awesome! No idea what he's on about. But those lamps will light up and they need to send a signal up to our display, and I think I'm probably just going to do that with an expensive line of observer blocks, just because it's going to be underwater and we don't want any redstone washing away. But yeah, we've got more redstone to think of. We need a hopper clock to run the game, and to start it and stop it, I think I'm going to go for this kind of switch. So we'll have 2 droppers facing into one another, and you can't power the dropper directly, but if you put a block on each side, and we'll put 1 item in there, and I can't really show the signal very well, but I'd have a comparator running off each of those droppers, and I'll grab some buttons. There we go, so we've got 2, so put 1 on each block. So at the moment we've got an item in this dropper, so power would be coming off this one saying the game's off, but you'd push to start the game, the item goes into the other dropper, so you'd have a comparator running off here saying the game's on, and then when it's over you just power this one and it goes back to there. A little bit confusing, I'm a little bit confused myself, but we've just got to rig it all up, so I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet, and it's going to be fun doing it in survival. But yeah, we'll figure it out. You know, I've done a lot of these redstone minigames, and I've done tutorials for them too, and it's easy enough to get them working, but getting them small enough for a design that you could present in a tutorial that people will actually want to build, that is tough. So the way to do it, the way I've found just by experience, is not by trying to cram the redstone into as tight a space as possible, but it's finding which redstone contraptions you've got in here that you don't actually need. So my on and off switch, I installed it in survival and I was trying to connect it, and then I realized I don't need that, the two droppers firing the item between them, because I've already got one. My dropper over here with the shovels in it, sending out the signal to the redstone lamps. It doesn't look the same, but it essentially does the exact same thing. So what happens when the game's over? We end up with 6 shovels in our chest, and this repeater turns on that lamp. So that repeater is the off switch. So these two hoppers here represent my hopper clock running the game. All I need to do is run some redstone from that third repeater to turn the game off. And then to turn the game on, that's just a matter of turning this redstone torch off long enough to allow the 6 shovels to flow back into that dropper. So here's an on switch, so it just powers into a little pulse extender. That stays lit up long enough to keep that redstone torch turned off so all the shovels can get back. Do I have an on button somewhere? Here we go. So there we go. That's number 1, number 2, and then you're dead. So the game's turned off, the hopper's locked, and then to start the game. And this is another thing I figured out, because I've discovered something terrible, which I'll explain to you in a minute. I'm going to have both players on each ship press the start button at the same time. That saves me from running this redstone signal over to the other ship. So they can both press start at the same time, torch turns off, and our shovels trickle back into the dropper. Now for the horrible thing I've discovered. So the horrible thing that I didn't consider was that these ships need to talk to each other. So I'm hiding on my redstone, basically making them look like standalone ships, and then I realise, hang on, my hopper clock needs to be powering the cannons on both ships. I need the on switch to talk to both ships. I need the off switch when the game's over to talk to both ships. Where am I going to put this redstone signal? So the easy way, of course, for the start switch was just for the 2 players to go, okay, ready, go, boom, both press start at the same time. That helps. But the other thing I considered that I actually did this, and then I decided against it. I had tripwires running between the 2 ships over about here. So I'd have a tripwire hook in each one with string going across, and I'd had a minecart on top of a piston. So when I wanted to send a signal for both ships to get at the same time, I'd push the minecart up into the string, and both tripwire hooks would activate. And that was working. It was working really well. It was invisible. But then I figured, in these complex games, you don't want a wire like that hanging out that makes it so easy to break. So what if 2 people are playing a game and someone flies in and hits the tripwire? That just ruins the whole thing. So I came up with, well, I didn't come up with anything ingenious. I just drained some water down below so we could lay a bit of redstones. I've put my hopper clock down the bottom here. That's controlling when the minecarts fire, the cannons fire. So the good thing about this is I've got 32 dirt in there, 32 items at the moment. So if you want to do teams, like have 2 people on each side, you could take dirt out to make the cannons fire more often, to make it more challenging. And then the off switch, so when, let's run back up here, when the third lamp turns on either side, it doesn't have to happen on both sides. Well, I've run the redstone down this little track here. It's getting long and monstrous, but that doesn't matter. And that will extend the piston, push down the redstone block, and the signal coming from both sides will just lock these hoppers and turn the game off. As soon as you press start, yeah, the redstone block will come up and the game will begin. So, like, not very good for a tutorial. It's not compact at all, but the game should be working. If you've ever wondered what my schedule is for putting out Minecraft videos, because I seem to put them out on different days and different times, it's all over the place. Basically, I don't say that I'm going to put them out on a certain day. What I do is I try to stick to 5 days. If it gets to the 5th day and I haven't put out a video, then I have failed you all. And it is nearly midnight on day number 4, and I need to upload this overnight. So we're going to finish here. I warned you it would probably be a 2-parter. And you're not going to see the game running just yet because I've got another ship to build. And to actually test it, I need another person here. So I might try and see in the next few days if I can get Griff and Curly to come and kill each other while I zoom around in the camera account and make sure everything's working correctly. But until then, I've got some ships to build. So cheers, guys. I'm Cortezerino. Ahoy, my hearties. I don't know why I said that. I'm out in the ocean. I felt like doing something piratey. This program is brought to you by the letter R. Now, I better go. See ya.